Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and LEGO is releasing two brand new Nike sets, which honestly remind me a lot of the LEGO sports sets we used to get in the early 2000s. For better or for worse. One of the sets is basically like a modern day sports set come to life. It is a basketball hoop shooter. There's a giant shoe, of course, because it is a Nike branded set, but there's also a whole mechanism to launch the basketball into the hoop, which really reminds me of those old LEGO sports stuff. The other one is a little bit wackier. It basically takes the template of the LEGO superheroes buildable action figures, which are controversial to say the least. They're certainly not everybody's cup of tea, and I definitely think that a lot of people are not the biggest fans of these figures. Like you can see right here with Wolverine and Captain America, but it takes that same figure template and proportions and turns it into a statue sort of display set of somebody dunking a ball into a hoop with a couple of different extra parts for colors of jerseys and whatnot. It's a very weird set of releases, and it kind of reminds me of when LEGO was being really experimental back in the early 2000s. They were kind of experimenting with all sorts of different random types of sets. So I wanted to take an early look at these, and let's jump in right now. Following the release of the Nike Dunk set earlier this year, LEGO is releasing two slightly smaller Nike sets to go along with the rest of the theme. 43010 is Nike Slam Dunk, retailing for $70 or 70 euros and coming with 809 pieces. That's the larger buildable figure here. And then 43021 is Nike Dunk Trick Shot, retailing for $40 or 40 euros and coming with 454 pieces. These are very strange LEGO sets, and honestly, some of them are a little bit more charming to me than others. The smaller set in particular really reminds me of LEGO's very strange experimentations with LEGO Sports back in the early 2000s. It kind of feels like the natural evolution of something that LEGO would have put out around the LEGO Sports theme of that time, for better or for worse. The other set, though, I am very skeptical of. The Nike Slam Dunk set basically takes, as I was mentioning in the beginning of the intro, the template introduced for the LEGO Marvel and DC buildable figures and makes it less posable and kind of just turns it into a static statue. I really don't know what to make of that set, and we're going to be taking a closer look at it in a second, but I want to start off with the smaller one because honestly, I like the smaller one a lot more, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is a much better set. It's still really weird. So, this is the Nike Dunk Trick Shot set. The way that it works is essentially you push a lever on the back of the model, and it kind of makes it look like the shoe is jumping or kicking, allowing you to have the minifigure, which is very firmly mounted to the top of the shoe, to mimic the motion of dunking the basketball into the hoop. The basketball piece is actually used from the original LEGO Nike set that came out earlier this year. There it was used as the head of the basketball player, but here it is unprinted for the basketball itself, which I think actually works really well. I'm glad LEGO made a piece for it. It would have been nice to get the lines printed, but I guess LEGO just didn't really have a way to do that. The thing about the figure is that unfortunately there is no sort of printing on the side of the leg to really suggest the feeling that they're wearing shoes. This is particularly strange to me because while I don't necessarily feel like leg printing is always needed, for a Nike set where the figure is supposed to be wearing shoes, I kind of expect the minifigure to at least have like the Nike checkmark on the side of their pants. But instead, the legs are totally plain, which is really weird. The figure itself is pretty nice, and I really like the hat and hoodie combo piece that they used from Hidden Side with the Nike logo. It also comes with an alternate female head instead of the male one in case you want to personalize your minifigure, so I think that's all very nice and good, but does feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity, especially because this set is $40 for a set that really doesn't feel to me like you're getting any more than maybe $25 or $30 tops worth of value, even the part count aside, just in terms of what you can do with it. Now, you do have the option to remove the shoe, and this leaves this very unsightly Technic mass in the middle there, and essentially the entire point is for you to basically use those Technic elements to launch the ball into the hoop, like I just demonstrated. It's a feature that works okay, but the relative jankiness of the way that it's built and the way it looks aesthetically really just reminds me of those old LEGO sports sets, which sometimes had these very weird Technic mechanisms to allow you to achieve a sports-related type of action. It just kind of reminds me of those early 2000 sets, and again, I don't even know if that's necessarily a good thing. It feels like LEGO Sports, alright, it certainly feels like LEGO Sports is back, but at what cost? Those sets were very strange, they were very experimental, and I am all for LEGO experimenting with what they can do, but I feel like this set does feel like it is from like a decade or two ago, and that certainly doesn't do it any favors. The shoe build itself is alright. It definitely isn't as crazy or involved as previous versions of brick-built LEGO shoes, but I actually think it's okay for a smaller set, and I am surprised at just how locked in the minifigure is. He's so locked in there that you literally can swing the legs and the shoe will not come off, which is honestly very interesting, and it's very rare to see LEGO do something like this. So, altogether, what do I think about this set? I mean, for $40, it doesn't really seem that worth it for me. 454 pieces on paper is, I guess, good value, but after playing around with it and seeing what it has to offer, the only good thing I can say about it is it's kind of nostalgic, because it kind of reminds me of some of those older LEGO sports sets. Moving on to the other set, though, the Nike Slam Dunk, this one is $70 for 809 pieces, which again, on paper, seems like good value, but it's just a very weird set to me. First thing out of the gate is they included a ton of extra pieces and stickers to allow you to change the color of the shoes and the color of the jersey, and even change the hairstyle of the figure a little bit, which they didn't really need to do. I kind of feel like this is a result of leftover budget for the set, but it was kind of cool to get some of these specialized colored elements, especially a whole new set of stickers, in case you wanted to build it slightly differently. However, I chose to go with the default option, which is the version you can see on the front of the box, which you can see right here. I also like how this one has a ponytail on the back of the character's hair, which kind of is just utilizing a regular LEGO minifigure hairpiece, so that's pretty cool. The strangest thing about this model is that it basically takes the scale and template of those buildable action figures, but you literally cannot pose this figure whatsoever. It is actually in a fully fixed position. Despite the fact that the legs are mounted on joints, you cannot move those joints. They are forcibly fixed via Technic axles and pins that connect the entire figure together. You can't even really remove the figure at all from the stand because it's so tightly built in there, it essentially is just a statue. In fact, literally the only amount of articulation you have is in the arms, so you can actually make him dunk the ball, which I guess is nice enough, and of course you can tilt the head on a mixel joint or mini ball joint, but that is literally it. Other than the fingers, the elbow, arm, and hand, you cannot move the figure at all, and it feels so strange to me to basically go almost all the way, even including some of the joints you would want to have on a buildable action figure, and then just fix the knees, fix the ankles, and even fix the position of the upper legs. It's so bizarre to me, and leaves me wondering that if LEGO really wanted to do a sculpture set, why do they even have to use the template of those buildable figures? Like, why not just come up with something a bit different? Maybe something like we saw in the LEGO Ideas Jazz Band set, which had these really nice kind of Art Deco, interesting brick-built inspired figures. Why go with the template if you're just not going to have it articulate at all? So obviously, while the focal point of this set is on this figure jumping up, kicking back, and some would say whipping the ball into the hoop, the rest of the set itself is remarkably plain. You have a little 2D display for crowds in the audience there, which is just represented by a couple of different tiles, which I think works okay for what they're trying to do with a bit of forced perspective. You have a scoreboard with some nice little Easter eggs in terms of when like LEGO was founded and all of that, which I think is nice. You know, you've got some Easter eggs here and there with stickers, and these stickers themselves are shiny, which is always very cool, but the scoreboard itself is super simple. It's just kind of your standard LEGO Technic assembly, and the whole figure itself just feels very unfinished, like it just isn't necessarily supposed to be a finished model the way it's built. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too hard on this model, but I really don't know who this is for. But again, maybe I'm not the target audience for this. Perhaps there are people out there who will really appreciate sets like this, because LEGO really, to be honest, hasn't made quite anything like it before. And if you asked me to make a LEGO Nike set, I mean, I honestly don't know what I would have come up with. This is probably the best I also could have come up with. I really don't know what else you can do with Nike. They've done a big shoe, they've done a little shoe, they've done a buildable action figure like this, although action figure is a very kind of loose term there, given that you can't perform any actions with it. And maybe, I would say, I mean, just go back to LEGO Sports. Give us a full-on basketball arena, which has some sort of a function to allow your minifigures to actually play the game. I'm sure that LEGO could try something like that in the modern day, and clearly they're willing to go back to what they were doing with LEGO Sports, especially when you look at the smaller item in this set. So altogether, it is just a very strange collection of sets here. These sets absolutely are not my personal cup of tea, but obviously, maybe I'm not the target audience for them. I never was that into sports or basketball, so I could totally see somebody who loves basketball really liking these, but I just wanted to put out a video on this because I'm really curious to hear what people people have to say in the comments about these sets. Do you like them? Do you dislike them? What do you think of these very bizarre LEGO sports sets for the Nike theme? Do they kind of remind you of the old LEGO sports theme like they remind me of that old theme? And would you like to see more or less stuff like this going forwards? That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.